Mickey, I love to go into situations as prepared as possible, so I had a natural affinity for the conversation prep chart. Could you talk a little bit about how to use it effectively and how to use the individual pieces and components within the prep chart itself?
The conversation prep chart we think of as an anticipation tool, and we think that people do not tend to use their own power to anticipate very well. We developed it from a variety of different places. We were doing a lot of work in Hewlett-Packard at the time, still an important client of ours and people there we care about. And Richard was working with someone who was dealing with a set of issues that had to cause cooperation across boundaries and business units and countries and all kinds of stuff. And that plus some other things led us to where it is right now. But what it amounts to is we found that if you ask people to predict the future, they're actually better at it than they think. So this is a tool to have people predict and be prepared for the future before it happens. And the questions it asks pull up from people things that they really do know or could know. Now the way it works is we have people pick an important interaction. It could be a meeting that's coming up. It could be a conference call. It could be one-on-one. Could be 1 on 1,000 or 5 on 5. Doesn't matter. The starting place is what's my current sincere view of whatever this conversation is. If you remember earlier, we said that all improvement starts with what's present. It can't start anyplace else. So just what's honestly present for me. What's my sincere opinion? Go ahead and let it out. Nobody else has to know but me. And we say write that down. It's good to get it out. That's why we write it down. Then we ask ourselves, okay, to deal with that sincere situation, who are the crucial few people who must connect? Now sometimes I'm going into a one-on-one call with you, but I know there are 2 other people that are affecting your and my conversation, so I want them on the chart. We generally say, fill out 1 chart per important conversation, which means not more than 5 people counting you. Even we've done really complex negotiations, $20 billion negotiations with 600 people having inputs, we still don't fill out more than 2 sheets at a time because we're looking for the crucial few influencers. Who are the 5 who affect 50 or 100 or 500 people's attitudes? If you look at it personally, you can even say, I'm going to prepare for a conversation with a family member. I had one with one of my children's coaches who I had an issue with in a sport that I actually used this because I could tell when my children's health is at risk, let's just say my emotional agility is challenged. So I filled this out. And so you put in there you first, because we find if you don't get yourself centered, connected, you're not very good at revealing other people's purposes, concerns, and circumstances. So you start out by saying, given the situation, what facts and the circumstances are on my mind? And there's a block for that in the chart. Then, what worries do I have? What am I concerned about? There. Now, what am I for, which is the purpose block, that would have me be effective in those circumstances and would help me deal with these things I don't want, the concerns. So you want for yourself something in the purpose box, the concern box, and the fact box. Then you do the same thing for the other people who are involved. Now there's 3 degrees of certainty in doing this. You may know because you know exactly what they would say, but if you don't know that, you may know someone who would know. But worst case is still pretty valuable, which is just asking yourself, if I had that person's accountability, their job, their situation, how would I fill this out? And just that question will create a lot more anticipation of what it's like for them. So we like that question. If I had their job, their accountability, their situation.
Or as you alluded to earlier with the teenager, if I was 16 again.
That's right. And that's what I mean by their situation. So if I was a senior in high school and 17 years old and fill in the blank. So from there, you look down through the columns. You've now created columns of purpose, columns of concern, and columns of factual circumstance. And there's intersection boxes below that. And all you do is you look for themes. You look for things that you can see are mutually important, and you let everything else go by. Because there's still all sorts of differences. When you look at the intersection model, there's what's in common is at the center, and then there's all these things that are not in common outside of the center. Fine, we're going to take action first on what's in common. So we want to get what's in common regarding purpose, concern, and circumstance. Then you take what's in those three intersection boxes and using only that vocabulary, rename the issue. So at the top of the chart, it's my sincere opinion about the issue. At the bottom, it's what would be authentically important to the people involved. That becomes my purpose focus for running the meeting.
So do you remember on the one that you did with the coach, it may not be appropriate to state your first sincere opinion, but how that differed and what you came up with as your essential purpose at the bottom?
Well, something happened that I felt like put my child's health at risk. And my sincere opinion was, let's just say, not printable. My first reaction was that of a protective parent. And if I would have gone in and shouted that opinion, the likelihood that something good would have happened would be very small. So when I went through the whole thing and got to the bottom, what I could actually see is that the coach had very good intentions and enormous trust in my daughter. So much trust that she just gave her a question that really had MROs have to be responsible for her own health. And I looked at, oh, she's functioning out of trust. And I was interpreting that as irresponsibility. So what could we have in common? We could have in common trusting and trusting MROs and contributing to her well-being. That was a completely different reason for a conversation than what I had at the top.